War Measures Act was adopted on August 4, 1914. The act allowed the government to search, arrest, and detain Canadians, and it also allowed the government to seize properties without warrants, trials, or compensation, in order to keep and maintain security in the country. War Measures Act was used 3 times since the date was adopted. It has been used during World War I, World War II, and during the October Crisis. World War I. By 1914, many people immigrated to Canada from countries that were considered enemy allies during the Great War. By 1914, there was a fear that these people were actually working hand in hand with their country of origin against Canada to wage a guerrilla war, for example. Many people tried to change in many ways to keep themselves safe and away from the cloud of suspicion. For example, people of Berlin, Ontario changed the name of the city to Kitchener in honor of the fallen British war hero and the British Secretary of State of War. During the next 4 years, about 80,000 people were arrested, detained, and forced to register with the government on suspicion with enemy activity. People who originated in one of the current enemy nations such as Austria-Hungary had to be careful what they say, do, receive, and send, and where they move. They also had their freedoms tied because they had to report almost every change that happened in their lives. They had their movement controlled by the government, and any publication in language was banned. Many people were arrested and interned in order to maintain order and avoid any danger such as spies or people who show sympathy. By the end of war, more than 8,000 had been interned in remote prison war camps, and about 100 died. World War II. Many Japanese Canadians faced racial discrimination, and many of them lost their homes, jobs, businesses, and their families. Many of them were also sent to internment camps throughout Canada. People from Japanese origins had to register with the Register of the Enemy Alliance under the War Measures Act after Canada declared war on Japan. 22,000 Japanese Canadians were sent to 26 internment camps across Canada. Some were sent to empty towns and some to other provinces. 1,200 fishing boats were impounded and under the control of the Japanese Fishing Vessel Disposal Committee. Japanese language schools and newspapers are closed, and insurance policies were cancelled. The government sold off all their possessions to keep them from returning back to their cities. On April 1949, Japanese Canadians regained their freedoms, and deportations were cancelled. About 4,000 Japanese Canadians had already been repatriated. Those who wanted to go back to British Columbia had started their lives from scratch. In 1988, the Canadian government under Brian Mulroney extended an official apology to Japanese Canadians for the policies enacted against them. October Crisis. It started on the 5th of October 1970. Armed members of the LFQ, Quebec Liberation Front, kidnapped James Cross at his home, while members of the Chenier cell took Laporte. The FLQ is a terrorist organization that wants to liberate Quebec and gain independence. The kidnappers demanded the freeing of a number of convicted or detained FLQ members, $500,000, and the broadcast of a manifesto. The kidnapping raised a fast response from the federal government under Pierre Trudeau. It's also the time where he said his famous word, "Watch me," to a reporter who asked him about how far was he willing to go.
For helmets and guns, all I can say is go on and bleed, but it's more important to keep law and order in this society than to be worried about weak-kneed people who don't like the looks of a soldier. At any cost? At any cost? How far would you go with that? How far would you extend that? Just watch me.
On 16th of October, under the War Measures Act, membership of the FLQ became a crime. Arresting people and detaining them without a charge was authorized and normal liberties were suspended. 450 were detained in Quebec and then released without charges. War Measures Act was only used in these 3 events, and it still exists today.